Good morning. My name is Esteban Bermudez, and I coordinate the climate change mitigation team at the United Nations Environment Program in the Office for Latin America and the Caribbean. This is the fourth session of a series of webinars in the Caribbean related to electric transport. And today we're going to talk about electric buses in Barbados. So it's my honor to present Mr. Ian Walcott, Ambassador of Barbados in Panama, and also Mrs. Lynda L, that is the Chief Operations Officer of the Transport Board of Barbados. So without taking much time, thank you, Mr. Walcott, for joining us. It's an honor to have you, and we're anxious to have Lynda's presentation as well. So I would like to give the word to Mr. Walcott so he can welcome us in this webinar. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, wherever in the world you are. Good morning. I'm hoping it's still morning. It's nice to see Lynda after all these years from two different parts of the world. I just want to take up a few, maybe three minutes to give you a little background on the relationship with between Panama and Barbados, to give you some context into what Lynda will present shortly. A lot of people don't realize how far this relationship goes. It actually started in the year 1880 with the first attempt of the Panama Canal. Barbadians were coming here from that period, 1880. Of course, history has recorded that in 1904, 19,900 Barbadians were hired to work on the Panama Canal, and another 25,000 migrated to Panama on their own accord. So from those early years, literally 100 years ago, the money that was repatriated from Panama to Barbados was so transformational that it created the first signs of a black middle class in Barbados. So the links go very deep. Velma Newton, in her seminal work called The Silver Men, she talks about, they were actually paid in silver as opposed to gold, and the kind of hardship. So my great-grandfather, Charles Walcott, was one of those silver men. So fast forward to 2020, Barbados is considered a developed country after all of these years, premised on investing in human development. And 2 years ago, we have a new government under the leadership of Mia Amor Motley, and the agenda has changed somewhat, our national agenda. And at the top of the agenda is what we refer to as environmentalism. And part of that agenda is to be fossil free by the year 2030. As we've seen in an earlier webinar with UNEP, Barbados also has a success story of a 54% penetration rate with the use of solar water heating. The Prime Minister has also embarked on a project to plant 1 million trees in Barbados. So before coming here in January this year, I was actually working on that project. So the electric buses are part of that overall strategy and agenda of the new government to have us fossil free by the year 2030. So that's just to give you a little backdrop. Again, it's nice seeing Lynda. We were from two adjoining neighborhoods in Barbados, Watts Village and South District. And we would often see each other on the bus going to school. So now, kids go to school by car, and now we have electric buses. So over to you. Thanks, Esteban.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walcott. The moderation, my colleague Johnny Orbea will be in charge of the moderation. So I asked her to, okay, please turn on your camera. Thank you very much for your kind words, and over to you, Johnny. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for your kind words. Thank you, Esteban. Thank you, Lynda, so much for being here today with us. I know we've been, at least myself, looking forward for this session for 3 months now. So I'm very, very excited. Thank you everyone for being here with us today. I hope you will enjoy the session as much as we will do, for sure. I would like to present Lynda. As Esteban said, Lynda is the Chief Operation Officer of the Transport Board in Barbados. She's been working in the Transport Board since 2002. Her professional experience includes works in the advertising, tourism, and the distribution industries. She has over 15 years experience in marketing, corporate communication, and project management, and she holds an MBA from the University on the West Indies and a professional certification of utility management specialist from the Institute of Public-Private Partnership at Loughborough University in Leicestershire in England. So thank you so much, Lynda, for being with us today. With no more time to be taken from you, please start your presentation. The floor is yours. Let me check if we can pass it to you to do the presentation. And there you go. Perfect.
Thank you so very much, Joan. Thanks, Ambassador Walcott, for that lovely introduction. We have known each other for years. I am very pleased to be here to speak on electric mobility in Barbados, and particularly in a small island developing state, the Barbados model. I have looked forward to doing this for a while since Joan asked me to speak to how we got to this point. So without further ado, let me walk you through our presentation. Why would we have moved to electric mobility? Before we can speak to why we actually moved to electric mobility for public transport, I think that you should know a little bit more about why we're moving to alternative sources of energy in the first place. Ambassador Walker spoke to a little of it, but in Barbados, it is not just that, because we are obviously in the section of the Caribbean that gets sunlight most of the year. So we are also looking at other areas where we can benefit from alternative energy. And to speak to that, we would have developed the Barbados National Energy Policy. And the Barbados National Energy Policy is the foundation for ensuring energy security and affordability through diversity and collaboration. It is establishing and maintaining a sustainable energy sector for Barbados. But more than just that, it also speaks to recognizing the importance of the use of energy as a renewable source and the prudent use of energy resources as a way to ensure sustainability and a thriving economy. The BNEP, the Barbados National Energy Policy, also highlights the importance of energy efficiency throughout the various sectors and subsectors of the industry, including public transportation. But more than just Lynda speaking about it, we also need to look at what are the expected use of alternative sources of energy and what are the plans for the island going forward. And I've put in a short clip here so you can hear from the members of the Ministry of Energy itself that speaks to what their plans are and how they see it rolling out. And then we can speak in more detail on the public transport sector of that. So give me 2 minutes and enjoy what our existing Minister of Energy has to say about the energy sector and the plans for it. And once again, I'm so sorry. There we go.
Lynda, I think we are not hearing the video.
Well, I'm sorry, I was just told you weren't hearing the video, so we all know how technology goes. Once we practice and practice, and then something still goes wrong.
Yes, I think we were hearing something on the video, but we weren't hearing the actual yeah. We are hearing some noises of the video, I guess.
So I need to make the video a little louder. Okay. Basically what that video spoke to was the plans for energy on the island. And I will send you the link so that you can always go. It's on YouTube, and it speaks to where we're going with energy on the island and what our expectations are. It speaks to how we will be encompassing renewable energy into all facets of our operation, not just to deal with the expected panels on the houses where we get electricity generated to give us hot water and things of that nature, but also how it is going to affect Barbados as it relates to all areas and what our plans are to reach 2030 with a cleaner environment for everyone to operate in. So I will post the link for you so that you will be able to see that instead of making you try to find it here at this point in time where it seems that we will have some challenges.
Perfect. Daniel is telling me that we already have the link and he will post it on the chat. So
great. Thank you so much, Danielle.
Thank you.
Having reached that decision, the cabinet then decided, let us move to purchasing a number of electric buses to augment our fleet in Barbados at the Transport Board. Now, for those of you who will see that video, that will be your vacation online to Barbados, but we were not able to improve our fleet in Barbados since 2006. So we were using fossil fuel, diesel buses, and the decision was made, let us then look at how we can electrify that fleet. It was grounded in the fact that even with an aggressive repair and maintenance program, the challenge of not having purchased any new buses since 2006 drastically reduced the available rolling stock, and this led to other areas of concern. It was an untenable situation, and the traveling public in particular are pensioners, and in Barbados, if you are over the age of 65, we believe that you have given enough to the country that you should be able to travel on public transport without having to actually pay. So that is subsidized by the government. And if you are part of the future generation, which are the students in Barbados, you also travel without having to pay, and that is also subsidized by the government. All other persons pay one fixed fare. Presently, it is $3.50 Barbados, which is roughly $1.75 US. It does not matter where you're going or the time of day that you're traveling. So without having public transportation available for these persons, it was proven to be challenging on the island. It had consequences for productivity. It also had consequences for the development of our economic landscape. So the government made a decision that they would purchase some buses. So having made that decision, how are we going to move to electric mobility in the transport sector? The cabinet agreed that they would procure a fleet of electric buses, and that it would also, whatever funds they invested in it, would also include all the necessary infrastructure, including the charging stations, spare parts, and to train personnel. And that was critical for us because this was a new venture for all of us. That investment was approximately $16 million US to give us the 33 electric buses and all of the extra stuff that came with it. To make sure that we spent that money in a way that was transparent and can stand up to scrutiny, the process for the purchasing of the buses included the development of specifications based on the needs of our traveling public. Barbados is an extremely hot place, and we want to make sure we would be able to offer them some amenities that they weren't accustomed to. Previously, all of our buses were fitted with windows that could open and close. These new buses are all air conditioned. And even with the COVID pandemic, we have taken steps to make sure that we've kept persons as safe as possible. You would note that the Barbados numbers for COVID have only just gone over 240. So we have been testing constantly, and we have been following a number of protocols that the government put in place to try to minimize any spread of the COVID-19 pandemic further through the island. That having been said, we have an ongoing sanitization process where every single trip, buses are sanitized before and at the end. But that is the present. To get to this point, we have done the specifications based on the traveling public as we know it to be. We sent out a request for proposals, and it was not only sent out in Barbados, but we placed it on our website, and we reached as far afield as we could to make sure. After we started to receive proposals based on the specs we had developed, something that had never been done in Barbados was also looked at for this project. And we introduced something called a College of Negotiators. The College of Negotiators was made up of a number of highly talented individuals, talented in their respective fields. It had attorneys, it had financial persons, it had economists, it also had technical persons such as engineer who would look at the specs and look at the results we had received and then make a determination on what they thought would have been the best fit for Barbados. After they then came back to the Transport Board and gave us their proposal and their recommendation, our Board of Directors, because the Transport Board is a statutory corporation, we report to the government of Barbados. We also, the middle person in between there is a Board of Directors that report to the minister. So the Board of Directors then looked at the recommendation of the College of Negotiators for the successful tenderer, but we took it a step further. And before we awarded that contract to anyone, our board then decided, let's send a team to see the manufacturers, these particular buses in operation, to make sure that it would match the needs and requirements of the Barbadian traveling public. They did that, and everyone agreed that we would have gone with Build Your Dreams, BYD, and so that tender was awarded to BYD. But in doing that, we realized that there were going to be some modern technical working capabilities and capacities that we would have to acquire, because there are things that we would never have looked at before, and some new repair techniques. That further allowed us then to look at the educational base in Barbados. We'll thank our persons then for specialized training in preparing for these particular buses. We opened up relationships with local persons who would have looked at electric mobility before, but on a smaller scale and using private vehicles. And we were able then to look at different synergies that we could achieve by moving to electric mobility. We knew that the persons would have to be trained. We knew that this was going to open up areas of diversity. It gave us an opportunity to prepare the country for the future, because the training was not only then extended to drivers of the buses, it was extensive, it was expansive, it was extended to technicians. Then we also included first responders, and first responders such as the fire service personnel and ambulance service personnel, and of course existing partners of the Transport Board. We took time to train up all of these different categories of persons to make sure that when these buses landed in Barbados, we would not have any issues. We also took time to reach out to our commuters, and there is a special group of commuters that we felt needed to be heard, that no matter what we were doing, they would be the ones who would be impacted most. And we took a lot of time to reach those persons, and that would be the area of the persons with disabilities. There is in Barbados a group who represents these persons, and it's called the Council for the Disabled. And those persons then, we took some time to go through with them what their expectations were and how we could match those expectations. I'm going to try this very short clip, and hopefully it shows and you can hear it. If it doesn't, once again, I will send it out so that you can listen to it after.
I think we cannot hear you again.
You cannot hear it? Okay.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry so much, Lynda.
I do apologize. I think it might be my own, no, because my sound is up to 100%. So we will make it work. So I will also send that video for Daniel and Joan, and they can drop that in the chat. But basically that video shows how we then met with the disabled community and we walked them through what the expectations were, what we had put in place, and they expressed confidence that they were very happy with what we had achieved. So that was how we got to this point, but now we're here. Today is the future is now. We deployed these buses, well, the buses were received on the 10th of July this year. We deployed them on the road on the 23rd of August this year. However, from start, when we first got the go-ahead from the government of Barbados to purchase these buses until when they were deployed, took us 12 months. We got the go-ahead on the 19th of August 2019, and we were able to deploy the buses on the 23rd of August 2020. We would have obviously not deployed it with the full rollout immediately because we would have been training persons as we went through it, but we were able to get them on the road on the 23rd of August 2020. This is the very first bus that we were able to deploy throughout the island, and we have been receiving very positive reviews on that bus and all buses, obviously. But the City Circle was deployed in our inner city, which for those of you who have visited Barbados or have not, even if you have not, that's Bridgetown, and we have a bus that circles the city from point A to point B in a constant circle. And the first bus, BM 600, was deployed on that route. Now, we spent a lot of time making sure we got our specifications correct. We have put in kneeling technology. We never had that in Barbados before. We have air conditioning on the buses, as I said earlier. We went so far as to look at what the new commuter requires, and the new commuter wants to stay constantly in contact. Every single bus has Wi-Fi on it. We have additional cameras for safety. You have access to charging ports so that if your device for any reason fails, runs out of power, you can charge it on board the bus. And we've deployed the buses throughout the territory of Barbados as we speak. This is where I have a small challenge, Joan, because the video that was scheduled to show next tells you all of that and shows you the bus going through the island. So when I send this to Daniel, I hope he can get it to play so that the persons who are online can see it before we sign out. So I'm just going to skip this video and speak to the specifications. Outside of what I just mentioned about the additional feel-good type things, we also have some technical specifications that we included that we felt were necessary. We have included a health alert management system, which is called HAMS, and an electrical load management system called EMS. And this was because to pull from our electricity supply at a constant rate could become very expensive, and we have not yet put in the solar panels that the Ministry of Energy would have spoken to in their presentation to be able to pull alternative energy. So to make sure that we don't run into a very expensive venture with the use of electricity for the buses, or fuel for the buses, we felt that we needed something that would monitor the buses as they're in operation and let us know what is happening. So the Health Alert Management System, which is HAMS, we have purchased that from a company called IO Controls, actually in Latin America. And that provides for us a real-time vehicle insight. It monitors and analyzes the state of charge on the battery as the bus is working, during charging, and when it is on the road. It monitors and sends statistics back to us. battery, electrical motor, AC, electrical control during the time it's on the road. And of course, it then sends me any sort of anomalies from the vehicle itself, and it gives me a monthly report to tell me what was happening. And that allows us to manage not just our expenditure, but manage how we will utilize these buses. Now, since we launched the buses on the 23rd of August, the buses have worked every single day without fail, except for when we pull them to do the required servicing. And we're already at the 20,000 kilometer service, and actually the next set of servicing, which is at 30,000 kilometer, is scheduled to start within 2 weeks. So that will tell you how long the buses are working. We start our services at 5 on mornings, and our last service leaves our terminals or bus stations at 5 minutes after midnight, which means it's on the road until, in some instances, 1:30 in the morning. That means that buses are on the road on average 20 to 22 hours daily, and we've had very good response from the commuters and from our information on the buses themselves. The ELMS, the Electrical Load Management System, which is managed, we have everything up in the cloud, obviously for security purposes, but that also gives us some information on the battery usage. We have, as much as Barbados appears to be flat, we do have some terrain that is rough and some of it has a serious gradient. So we want to be able to make sure that everything we've put in place is going to work as it relates to the buses and the movement of persons around the island. To date, I am pleased to be able to say that the response has been very positive, and we will continue to look at that. So some numbers that persons would be interested in seeing. Primarily, the cost of operating in Barbados for the Transport Board was tied into our use of fossil fuel. On the screen, I'm not sure if you can see the numbers, but on the screen, the diesel buses, on average, we had 45 diesel buses on the road in October, and the cost of fueling those buses was $9,016 per bus for the month. When we look at the equivalent of the electric buses, we had 33 buses on the road for October, and the cost of fueling one of those buses was $4,416 per bus for the month. That's nearly a 50% saving between using an electric bus compared to a diesel bus. And those are as recent as last month, well, October statistics. When we started in August, we had 54 diesel buses on the road, and it was costing the board approximately $8,059 per bus to run that bus on the road in fuel costs alone. This has nothing to do with maintenance charges or anything else. The equivalent for a diesel bus, even though we started late in August, we spent $1,078 in fuel to have each bus on the road. In September, when we would have had the entire month of September, we had 48 diesel buses on the road, and it cost us $8,413 per bus to keep the diesel buses on the road. The equivalent for the electric buses in September, it cost us $3,015 per bus to keep an electric bus fueled on the road. So as you can see, the savings that we have been able to achieve, even only in the area of fuel for the buses, is significant. And we've been able to keep the electric buses on the road from 5 in the morning until nearly 1 the following morning. So that was just so you would have some idea as to the possible savings from using that. At this time, we're already seeing savings, obviously, in the fuel costs, as I've indicated, but we're also seeing savings in the maintenance costs. Now, unfortunately, I don't have those final numbers to share with you, but we have less moving parts on an electric bus. So we're not having to replace as many pieces as we were doing with the diesel buses. We spoke about the software that we purchased to make sure that we continue to monitor what happens and that we wouldn't have to spend excessive amounts of money because we're either overcharging or we're not utilizing the buses at the best capacity based on where we have them deployed. So all of that is part of the project to make sure that we were able to reap the best benefits from having brought electric buses into Barbados. I'm going to send the video to Daniel, and I'm hoping he can drop it in before we go off. But at this point in time, I was given 30 minutes. I want to thank you for your attention. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so much, Lynda, for your presentation. I must say that it is very interesting from the very beginning. I'm very sorry about the videos. I will try, Daniel, to have it online so we all can see it. But I think it's really, really interesting how you, from Barbados, you see the electrification, how it is actually coupled with the energy sector, right? How it is not only transportation, but it actually is something bigger that comes with the national strategy of energy. I think that is really interesting for the Latin American countries mainly, because I think that the vision is pretty different in many Latin American countries where you only see the transportation by itself, not so much related to the energy sector. So I think it's really, really, really nice to see some other approach. Also, I was amazed about the process, how the tender came out, how you had this college of negotiators that would all specifically look at their own knowledge of the lawyers, the financial, the technicians to get the best offer. I think that is also pretty important. We know that it is not only the bus, it is how you pay for the bus, how you finance the bus, and also how you write down almost all the contracts, how it will run for so many years that are expected to run the buses. So that is also very, very interesting. Obviously, the training part, I think that looking not only to the drivers, not only to the maintenance people, but also to the first responders. I think that also really impressive, I must say, looking into that from the very beginning of the project, from the very to settle the buses in the perfect way into the city. I think that it also really, really nice to see that you've looked to all the parts of the buses that could go wrong and then put it in the first place. And also looking at the people with disabilities and how they will see the buses, how they will feel the buses, their expectations and everything. We know that it is high expectations with electric buses, not only because of the new energy, but also because everyone wants to get in, newer bus, cooler bus, everything can everyone is expecting huge transformation with electric buses, but it actually has to be real. It does not come alone just to buy the electric bus and then everything goes marvelous. It is a lot of work to be done before that happens. That actually can happen, but it's a lot of things that have to be done before that. So I think I thank you so much for your presentation again. I think it was really, really nice to hear that. We have some questions of the audience. So we will begin with the, it says, what are the buses' energy source? I think that they are meaning about the energy grid and right, how that transforms into the fuel of the electric buses.
Right. So the buses are charged, we purchase charging stations for every single bus. And what we do, as I said earlier, we have not yet installed our alternative energy panels, which is where we're going to be pulling from the sunlight. We've not yet installed that. So we're presently using the electricity coming from the electricity company to charge the buses. That is not the full-time plan. That is only a temporary measure until we can finish all the other pieces we're doing. But at this point in time, they are being charged from electricity pulling from our national grid. Hence why we also made sure we purchase the hams and the Ms so we don't have a situation where we are pulling at peak time, because that can become very costly, and that we're not charging too many at the same time to trip our own service here at the board. What we also did is that we installed at every location where the buses are kept our own transformers, our own generators, and our own switchgear. So we will make sure that we are monitoring constantly whatever fuel, electricity in this case, is being used. I've just sent you the link for the video, Joan.
Okay, thank you so much. I will pass it on to the chat right now. There's a question about the tender process. It says, what is the timing of the tender process and the requirements?
The tender was actually for 1 month. What we did was, after we worked out the specifications that we wanted persons to look at, we placed a notice in our local media asking for proposals to come back to us to see who could or could not meet what our requirements were. We took a month because we knew it was new technology for all of us, and that we were going to have to go outside of Barbados to make sure we achieve what we were seeking to achieve. That process was 2 weeks of paper of ads in the local media, giving them the 4-week timeline. And then when the tenders were actually received, it took us another 2 weeks for the College of Negotiators to go through and pull it apart to make sure they saw what they were expecting to see. By the time they gave us their own recommendation, I would say that would have been the end of the 2nd month. So that would have been a 2-month process to get to that point. And then, as I said, our board of directors did not just take the recommendation and said, okay, we're running with this. We then scheduled trips, and a team went to visit BYD's locations, one in Lancaster, California, and one in Chile, to make sure that we were actually getting something that would work in our environment and not just look really good on paper. So the total process between tendering and agreeing with the particular supplier that we were going to let them build the buses for us, I would say take about 3 months.
Okay, so 3 months including the visit to Chile.
3 months including the visit to Chile and the visit to California, yes.
Okay, okay. There's another question that said, is there any kind of managed charging system to optimize energy costs?
That would have been the 2 systems I spoke about, HAMS and ELMS. HAMS is the Health Alert Management System, and ELMS is the Electronic Load Management System. And those are what we use to track the energy uses and the energy costs.
And in that terms of the charging process, let's say, does this system also monitors the, I don't know if that's the way in Barbados, that you may have different electrical fares if you charge something on the peak or non-peak hours. So
yes,
they monitor that too?
Yes. So that's the main reason we purchase the systems, actually, because that manages that process for us without one of us having to manually go each time to check to see what time we're charging and make sure we don't charge too much at the peak. The peak cost is 24 Barbados dollars per kilowatt, and that could become obviously very expensive. Our electrical costs have obviously gone up, but we've been able to see the benefits from it. So we have the software in hand that allows us to monitor that, and actually also comes out of Latin America. The company we purchased it from is IO Controls.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that thing also is part of the numbers that you saw us, right? The difference about the cost, that is actually a very big part of that.
A very big part of that. Those savings are generated because we're able to look at things like that and make sure that we're not using too much energy at a peak time.
Perfect. Thank you so much. They're saying Barbados will does have very useful experience for other Caribbean countries. Are you receiving inquiries from other countries of the region to learn about the process, the buses, everything?
We are receiving numerous inquiries, actually. Antigua, Jamaica, a number of the other Caribbean territories are obviously looking to see how they can, one, move towards renewable energy, to save on the cost of fossil fuel, because that is the way we're going in the world right now. We are all looking at clean energy. And because we have been the first territory to have successfully deployed a public transport system using electric buses, we are actually the experts in this side of the world.
Absolutely.
So we have been receiving some inquiries through our parent ministry where persons are asking if we could either come see them or walk them through, very similar to this process I'm doing now, how we got to where we are, and give them some recommendations. So yes, and we're doing a lot of that.
Now, I must say, it is very impressive. There are so many other countries, 10 times, 20 times as big as Barbados that don't have even one bus running in the system, that you already have so many. So I think it's very, very impressive what you achieved.
Well, thank you. We have 33 already. We're getting 2 more actually in a couple of days. We will have 2 more coming in. And then I've just placed an order for an additional 14. So by the time, this same time next year, we will have nearly 50 electric buses working on the island.
Wow. And how many buses are there in total, like the whole fleet?
Transport Board's entire fleet right now is 166, but we will obviously be retiring some of those buses because we haven't purchased new buses in Barbados since 2006. So a number of those buses are obviously past the timeline where they are economical to use. So we will be retiring some of those and replacing those with the electric buses whenever we do that. And we're hoping to keep the fleet in that type of number because we have another, for us it is unique, and I don't know of any other Caribbean territory that's doing it. We're doing a partnership between government and private sector. So even though government is supplying 168 buses presently, there are other buses that we have worked with. So we have something called a Transport Augmentation Program, acronym is TAP. And in that program, we have an additional 120 buses that are also working with us. So effectively, our combined fleet is more like 280 buses on the road.
Okay. But actually, it will mean a big percentage of the fleet having all those buses for the next years. Very amazing.
It will.
We have another question on how was the fleet funded? It was grant, loans, any finance from the GCF or any international fund or development bank?
The funding was an international loan. For those of you who know a little bit of our economic history, even before COVID, Barbados had gone through a stage where we had to go to World Bank and to different agencies, IMF, to generate some funding to address a number of challenges we had been experiencing for the last few years. So that money, we were able then to negotiate with them, and we were able to get some funding to purchase those buses. The funding is actually higher than what we spent because it encompassed a number of other entities, but we were given approximately 16 million to purchase the buses themselves.
Perfect, thank you so much. Are there any considerations by the government to define safeguards for using both public Wi-Fi and charging ports on board?
I'm sorry, repeat that, John. I didn't understand the question.
It says, is there any consideration by the government to define safeguards for using both public Wi-Fi and charging ports on board? I guess if there are some kind of governmental, I don't know what it means by safeguard, for using public Wi-Fi and charging ports on board.
I am not sure what is being asked, but let me interpret it this way. The Wi-Fi on board the buses, we do have obviously protocols in place, so you can't go on board the bus and download any and everything. There are protocols in place for that. As it relates to the charging ports relate to the commuters, and they will be able to just charge the buses, the vehicles charge their devices on board the bus. As I said earlier, part of our training included our fire service to make sure that if anything occurs, they were well trained, and included our ambulance service to make sure if anything occurred that would lead to possible incidences, they were also well trained. I am not sure that answered the question from the person, but if it didn't and they want to rephrase the question, I'm open to discussion.
Okay, if the person that write that down doesn't feel like we answer the question, please do that again. In terms of the training that you were just talking about, so all that trainer, all that capacity building was within, well, as I understood, is within the tender process, right? And it was developed and it was delivered by in this case, BYD.
Some of it was. We insisted that as part of the process, BYD needed to have on island a representative that we would be able to reach out to in case anything occurred. And they would handle the maintenance for the first 2 years as our people were trained up. But in addition to that, one of our local educational institutions, the Barbados Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute of Technology here in Barbados, they offered some training as well. So we sent all of our technical people from the transport board to do that training, which would have exposed them to electrical engines and how you manage things of that, because we were working from diesel all the time. So there's certain safeguards they had to learn as well. So we sent all of our team to do that. And then we have a relationship with our Barbados Defense Force. In the event of a national emergency, they are the alternative drivers for any of the buses belonging to the government. So we also included them in the training. So they also went to the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic to make sure that they were trained to a certain standard. Then when BYD came, they then had to do training as well, specific to the buses and not just to electrical engines or things of that nature. So yes, BYD had to come on island, and that is the agreement, that if you're going to be selling us buses, you are going to come in and spend time doing training to make sure our people were not just proficient, but as much as we can get them to the level of being as close to expert as you can do, to make sure that if you're not here, we wouldn't run into challenges. And that is part of the contract.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting how you managed to get all of those actors together and as you say, nearly up to experts. I think that's really interesting. It says there's so many questions. That the technical training was provided by the transport board. I think we already said that. It was a third-party provider, especially for the emergency stuff. So I think they are asking who did who gave out the training for the first responders?
The third-party provider would have been that one. BYD did some of that, and as I said, the local institute did some of that. But the primary part was done by BYD because they would know the buses better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's pretty important also for many other countries in the region that are now looking at how to approach it, that issue particularly. And I think that many people is looking for who will give that training to the first responders. So maybe also the general
contract. What I would suggest to anyone who is looking to go in the same direction, stick to your guns on that particular thing. There are two things that we insisted had to happen, even if you made changes with everything else. Training must be provided. It was integral to the contract, and that we must have a local representative here that can fix the buses, who is trained at a level higher than my team. So if my team runs into a problem, there must be someone here that they can go to and not have to reach out to China or to Panama. Mm-hmm. And so far we've not had any major issues, but any areas we had concerns with has been addressed.
Perfect. I hope that keeps this way. it says, there's another question, are the buses capable of bi-directional charging? I think is vehicle to grid.
Bi-directional charging?
Yeah, I think they mean if they can, so I think that what they mean is that if they can charge back to the grid the energy in case of, I guess, emergency or something.
Well, the way Barbados is set up, we cannot send back to the grid that way. We're set up that in Barbados, all the electricity that you use, you have to purchase from the grid, and then the ones that you generate from the same panels that I said we haven't put in as yet, that is then sent back to the grid. But I believe that based on the specifications of the buses, and I hope this is what the person's asking, in the event that electricity goes down and our buses are fully charged, they can be used to power other things, yes.
Okay, okay. I think that was the question. I think that also, yes, I think that's also pretty pretty forward thinking, like looking into the future of what the buses can do and cannot do for the not only moving people but many other things in the country.
Remember, as I said, in the event of an emergency, a national emergency, the buses are going to be operated by our defense force. So we were also looking at what else. We don't just want a situation where a bus, even though it has kneeling technology, and yes, we've tested it going through water, we don't just want a bus then that's just a people mover. If it's a national emergency and God forbid electricity has gone down, as long as all of those buses are fully charged, that battery can be used to power something else.
Mm-hmm. I actually saw a video of like a month ago or so where there was a heavy rain in Barbados that you get the buses running through, and it was it was really impressive.
That was one of the things I posted on LinkedIn, because we had, as expected, it was new technology, and we had persons who were querying what it could and could not do. So I was literally on the bus using the Wi-Fi and running the video saying, yes, we play in water as well.
So I think we are running out of time. I think we have two more questions that I will do. If any of you, of the people that are seeing this session, have other questions, please send us to us. We will find a way to give answer to them. There's a question about the life expectancy of the buses. What's the life expectancy of the buses?
The body of the bus, the life expectancy of the body of the bus, and you will see when you look at the video that the bus is 3/4 glass. Outside of things like that will be damaged. The body of the bus has a lifespan of 10 years. The battery, which is the more important part, that has a lifespan of 8 years for use on the bus, and then it can be recycled to use in something else.
Okay, and do you already know or have a view of where the batteries can be used or something like that?
We have a number of ideas, but we have not yet made concrete plans. But again, that was built in, that we will not just be bringing stuff here to Barbados and then it sits here. We have to be able to reuse it in some format. And we've looked at different options. We're talking to our energy provider, our national electric company. We're talking to them to see how they can use them. We're also talking to Barbados National Oil Limited to see if they can use them as well. So we have different options that have been placed on the table. We just have to determine which direction we will go in.
Okay, okay. So I think we are just in time. I would like to thank you again, Lynda, for the presentation, for answering all the questions. As someone asked, I think you are getting a lot of inquiries from other countries. Probably we will call you again if you don't mind for another session. I think there's so many questions still that have been unanswered. We don't have much time. But again, thank you so much for everything. It is great to know that you are advancing in such a comprehensive way on the electric buses in Barbados. Thank you everyone for being here with us. We will post all the videos and the presentation of Lynda on the website, that is movelatam.org. You will have everything there, so you can see the videos that we couldn't see today. But thank you again, everyone, for attending. Thank you again, Lynda, for everything. And I know it's too early, but Happy New Year.
Thank you so very much for having me. And I do look forward to engaging you and other members of Latin America going forward, because the place we live is very small. And at some point in time, we will all need each other to get through. So thank you so very much for having me. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.